The moment Malik Robinson pulled out his black card, the entire dealership erupted in laughter. They had no idea they'd just laughed away $1.8 billion. It was a humid Tuesday morning in Manhattan when Malik stepped through the glass doors of Lux Automotive Group, one of the most exclusive car dealerships in the city. The polished marble floors reflected his confident stride as he approached the private sales office, carrying himself with the quiet authority of someone who'd built an empire from nothing. But let me tell you who Malik Robinson really was, because the staff at Lux had no clue what was about to hit them. Malik wasn't just another wealthy customer walking through their doors. He was the founder and CEO of NovaGrid Innovations, a technology powerhouse that had revolutionized artificial intelligence and sustainable infrastructure across 3 continents. His company's breakthrough algorithms were powering smart cities from Dubai to Detroit, and his vision for urban mobility had caught the attention of governments worldwide. At just 42 years old, Malik had transformed from a kid who coded in his basement to leading a company valued at over $12 billion. Forbes had featured him on their cover twice. Time magazine had named him one of the most influential people shaping the future of technology. Wall Street analysts hung on his every quarterly report. Yet, despite all his achievements, despite the patents bearing his name and the billions his innovations had generated, Malik still faced moments like this. Moments where his skin color seemed to matter more than his net worth. He'd arrived at Lux that morning for one specific purpose: to finalize the largest fleet deal in automotive history. NovaGrid was expanding rapidly, opening 12 new offices across major cities, and they needed vehicles for their executive teams. Not just any vehicles, cutting-edge luxury cars that reflected the company's status and values. The deal on the table? A staggering $1.8 billion fleet purchase that would include over 800 high-end vehicles, complete with custom modifications and a decade-long service contract. This wasn't just a car purchase. It was the kind of deal that could define a dealership's entire year, maybe their entire decade. Malik had specifically chosen Lux Automotive because of their reputation for handling elite clientele. Their Manhattan flagship showroom catered to Fortune 500 executives, celebrities, and international dignitaries. Their marketing proudly declared they provided white-glove service for discerning customers who demand excellence. But as Malik approached the sales desk that morning, something felt off. The energy in the room shifted the moment he walked in. Conversations became hushed whispers. Eyes followed his every move with a mixture of curiosity and barely concealed skepticism. When Malik reached into his tailored jacket and produced his American Express Centurion card, the legendary black card reserved for individuals with extraordinary wealth and spending power, everything changed. The reaction was immediate and humiliating. Snickers rippled through the sales floor. One sales representative, Roderick Hayes, actually laughed out loud, turning to his colleagues with a smirk that said everything about what he thought he was seeing. "I never thought I'd see someone actually try to use one of those," Roderick muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Guess anyone can get their hands on fancy plastic these days." The laughter that followed would cost Lux Automotive more than they could have ever calculated. Because in that moment, they weren't just mocking a piece of plastic. They were mocking a man whose next phone call could make or break their entire business. Malik stood there, feeling the familiar sting of being judged by his appearance rather than his achievements. But this time would be different. This time, there would be consequences. Drop a comment if you've ever been judged by your appearance, because this story is about to show why respect should never be optional. The showroom's pristine atmosphere seemed to crystallize around Malik as every conversation stopped. Crystal chandeliers cast bright light across the marble floors, creating an almost theatrical setting for what was about to unfold. The scent of new leather mixed with expensive cologne filled the air. But the tension was thick enough to cut. Roderick Hayes, a middle-aged sales manager with perfectly styled gray hair and a practiced smile, stepped forward with the confidence of someone who'd never been challenged in his domain. His expensive suit and gold watch screamed success, but his eyes held something else entirely: The kind of dismissive calculation that instantly sized up and dismissed what he saw. "Good morning," Malik said, extending his hand with professional courtesy. "I'm here to discuss a fleet purchase for Novagrid Innovations." Roderick's handshake was perfunctory, his attention already wandering to other customers in the showroom. "Fleet purchase? How many vehicles are we talking about?" 812 units, Malik replied calmly. "Executive vehicles for our global expansion. The total package should run about $1.8 billion. The number hung in the air like a challenge. Roderick's eyebrows raised slightly, but instead of excitement, his expression shifted to something closer to amusement. He glanced toward his colleagues who had started gathering nearby, drawn by the conversation. "That's quite a claim," Roderick said, his voice carrying a tone that suggested he'd heard tall tales before. "I suppose you have financing pre-approved for something that substantial?" Malik reached into his jacket and withdrew his Centurion card, placing it carefully on the polished glass counter. The black metal caught the light, its weight and presence unmistakable to anyone familiar with true luxury. The reaction was immediate and devastating. Roderick stared at the card for a long moment, then let out a sharp laugh that echoed off the showroom's hard surfaces. "Well, I'll be damned," he said loud enough for the growing crowd of sales staff to hear. "Someone actually brought one of those movie props in here." The laughter spread like wildfire. 3 other sales representatives joined in, their voices creating a chorus of mockery that seemed to bounce off every polished surface in the showroom. "Seriously?" chimed in another staff member, a young woman who clearly felt emboldened by her manager's lead. "Those things don't even work for real purchases. They're just for show." Roderick picked up the card, examining it with exaggerated interest. "I've got to hand it to you. This is convincing. Did you get this from one of those websites that make fake credit cards? The weight feels almost authentic." Each word hit Malik like a physical blow. He'd faced discrimination before, but never so publicly, never with such casual cruelty. The other customers in the showroom had turned to watch, some looking embarrassed, others seeming entertained by the spectacle. "The card is legitimate," Malik said, his voice steady despite the fire building in his chest. "As is my interest in conducting business here. Perhaps we could move to a private office to discuss the details." Roderick's grin widened. "Listen, friend, I appreciate the effort, but we don't have time for games. This is a serious business establishment, not some reality show where people pretend to be millionaires. Why don't you head over to one of those buy here, pay here lots down the street? They might be more your speed." The words landed with surgical precision, designed to cut deep. The surrounding staff erupted in fresh laughter, some actually applauding Roderick's performance. Malik stood there, feeling the heat of humiliation wash over him. Every eye in the showroom was now focused on this moment, this public degradation of a successful black man who dared to enter their exclusive space. But instead of anger, Malik felt something else taking hold, a cold, calculating determination. He carefully retrieved his card from Roderick's fingers, his movements deliberate and controlled. "Respect," Malik said quietly, his voice carrying the kind of authority that commands attention, "is something that should be extended to every customer who walks through your doors. I hope you remember this moment." The laughter died abruptly, as something in Malik's tone registered. But the damage was already done. Have you ever had to stay calm when someone disrespected you? Because what happened next would change everything. Malik walked through the dealership's exit doors with measured steps, each footfall on the concrete sidewalk helping him process what had just occurred. The Manhattan street noise, honking horns, distant construction, the hum of thousands of conversations, felt like a welcome return to reality after the suffocating atmosphere inside Lux Automotive. He found a quiet cafe 3 blocks away, sliding into a corner booth where he could think without interruption. The humiliation burned fresh in his mind, but Malik had learned long ago not to make business decisions while emotions ran high. He pulled out his phone and dialed his chief operating officer, Marcus Chen. "How did the dealership meeting go?" Marcus asked immediately. Malik recounted the encounter in clinical detail, keeping his voice level as he described Roderick's behavior and the staff's reaction to his Centurion card. Marcus listened without interruption, his silence growing heavier with each revelation. "They actually laughed at your card?" Marcus finally said. "A legitimate black card? These people have no idea who they're dealing with." "The question is," Malik replied, "do we proceed with the deal anyway? From a pure business perspective, this contract would accelerate our expansion timeline by 18 months. The financial benefits are undeniable." Marcus paused. But Novogrid was built on principles. "We've always said that diversity and respect aren't just corporate buzzwords. They're core values. How do I ask our employees to embrace those values if I'm willing to compromise them for profit?" Within the hour, Malik had assembled a conference call with his senior leadership team. The debate was intense and immediate. His chief financial officer laid out the numbers. $1.8 billion represented significant leverage for their upcoming projects. Their head of operations explained how the luxury fleet would position Novogrid as the premier choice for corporate partnerships. But his head of human resources, Dr. Angela Williams, cut straight to the heart of the matter. "Malik, we have over 3,000 employees, 40% of whom are people of color. Many of them have faced discrimination in their careers. If word gets out that we rewarded a company for racist behavior with the biggest deal in our history, how do we look them in the eye?" The weight of leadership had never felt heavier. Malik stared out the cafe window, watching streams of diverse faces pass by on the Manhattan sidewalk. Each person represented someone's child, someone's dream, someone who deserved to be treated with dignity regardless of their background. His vice president of legal affairs raised another concern. "If we proceed, we're essentially signaling that racism is acceptable as long as the deal is big enough. That sets a dangerous precedent for every future business relationship." But here's what the dealership staff didn't know. While they were celebrating their clever dismissal of what they assumed was a fraud, their entire interaction had been captured by the showroom's security system. Every laugh, every mocking comment, every moment of their unprofessional behavior was now permanently recorded. More importantly, they had no idea who they'd just humiliated. Malik Robinson wasn't just wealthy. He was connected. His board included former government officials, civil rights leaders, and some of the most respected names in American business. The decision crystallized in Malik's mind with startling clarity. Some opportunities cost more than their worth. Would you walk away from $1.8 billion for your principles? Because Malik was about to make a choice that would shake an entire industry. 24 hours after Malik's humiliating encounter, a Lux Automotive employee named David Martinez made a decision that would change everything. David, a junior technician who'd witnessed the entire exchange from the service bay, couldn't sleep. The image of Roderick's mocking laughter kept replaying in his mind. David had access to the dealership's security system as part of his maintenance duties. At 2:47 a.m., he logged into the surveillance database and downloaded the footage from the previous day. By 3:15 a.m., he'd uploaded a carefully edited 2-minute clip to Twitter with a simple caption. "This is how @Lux Automotive NYC treats black customers with legitimate black cards. Disgusting." The first retweets came within minutes. By sunrise, the video had been shared over 200 times. By noon, that number had exploded to 15,000 retweets and climbing. The footage was devastating in its clarity. Every mocking laugh, every dismissive gesture, every moment of Roderick's performance was captured in high-definition audio and video. Viewers could see Malik's professional demeanor contrasted against the staff's unprofessional behavior. They could hear the exact words, witness the exact moment when legitimate business turned into public humiliation. Prominent voices began amplifying the story. Dr. Cornel West shared the video with his 500,000 followers, writing, "Corporate racism in 2024 looks exactly like this. When will we learn?" Celebrity entrepreneur Damon John added fuel to the fire. "I've been treated exactly like this. Every successful person of color has. This stops now." The hashtag Respect Matters began trending at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Within 6 hours, it had generated over 150,000 posts across all social platforms. People shared their own stories of discrimination in luxury retail spaces, creating a digital avalanche of similar experiences. Major news outlets picked up the story by evening. CNN led with tech CEO humiliated at luxury dealership over black card. The Washington Post's headline read, "When $1.8 billion isn't enough, racism in elite business spaces." Fox Business covered the potential financial implications, with dealerships' racist treatment could cost billions. But the real earthquake came when Nova Grid Innovations released their official statement at 8 p.m. that Tuesday. Instead of a typical corporate response, Malik's words cut straight to the heart of the issue. Today, a video surfaced showing treatment that no customer should ever endure. While the incident involved our CEO, this statement isn't about defending one person. It's about defending a principle. Nova Grid Innovations was built on the belief that innovation thrives when all people are treated with dignity and respect. We cannot and will not conduct business with organizations that fail to meet this basic standard of human decency. The statement concluded with a bombshell. Effective immediately, Nova Grid is withdrawing from all negotiations with Lux Automotive Group. Our $1.8 billion fleet contract will be awarded to a dealership that shares our values. The reaction was instantaneous. Nova Grid's stock price jumped 3.2% in after-hours trading as investors applauded the company's principled stance. Social media exploded with support from customers, competitors, and industry leaders. Civil rights organizations moved quickly to capitalize on the momentum. The NAACP issued a statement calling for a full investigation into Lux Automotive's practices. The National Urban League announced they would examine the company's employment records and customer service policies. The Economic Justice Coalition, representing over 200 Black-owned businesses, called for a nationwide boycott. This isn't an isolated incident, spokesperson Dr. Michelle Barnes explained during a hastily arranged press conference. This is systemic bias playing out in real time. When businesses profit from discrimination, those profits must stop. By Wednesday morning, Lux boycott was trending alongside Respect Matters. Corporate customers began announcing their own withdrawals from Lux Automotive. Tesla's corporate fleet manager tweeted, "Just canceled our service contracts with Lux Automotive NYC. Character matters more than convenience." Financial analysts began calculating the potential damage. Lux Automotive's parent company, Premier Holdings, saw their stock drop 8% by market close Wednesday. Industry experts estimated the company could lose upward of $500 million in contracts if the boycott gained additional momentum. Local news stations camped outside Lux Automotive's Manhattan location, filming empty showrooms and interviewing departing customers. The dealership had become a symbol of everything wrong with corporate culture in America. The conversation had evolved beyond one man's humiliation into a national reckoning about respect, dignity, and the true cost of discrimination. Share this if you believe respect should never be negotiable, because the consequences were just getting started. Thursday morning at 9:15 a.m., Malik Robinson placed the call that would cost Lux Automotive more money than any single phone conversation in corporate history. Gerald Whitman, Lux Automotive's chief executive officer, answered on the second ring. His voice carried the forced cheerfulness of a man trying to salvage a crisis. "Mr. Robinson, thank you for taking my call yesterday. I want to personally apologize for the unfortunate incident with our staff. We're prepared to move forward immediately with your fleet purchase." "Mr. Whitman," Malik replied, his tone professional but final, "I'm calling to formally withdraw Nova Grid Innovations from all discussions regarding the fleet contract." The silence on the other end stretched for nearly 10 seconds. "I'm sorry. Could you repeat that?" Gerald's voice had lost its confidence entirely. "The $1.8 billion contract is off the table," Malik continued. "Permanently, we will not be doing business with Lux Automotive Group under any circumstances." Gerald's panic was audible. "Mr. Robinson, please. We can resolve this. Roderick Hayes has been terminated. We're implementing new training protocols. We're prepared to offer significant discounts on the fleet pricing." "This isn't about discounts or training," Malik interrupted. "This is about character. The value of our company is measured not only in dollars but in integrity. We cannot compromise our principles, regardless of the financial opportunity." The call ended at 9:23 a.m. By 9:45 a.m., Gerald Whitman had convened an emergency board meeting via video conference. "Gentlemen, we have a catastrophic situation," Gerald announced to the 8 board members gathered on screen. "The Nova Grid contract is dead." $1.8 billion in guaranteed revenue just walked out the door. Board Chairman Richard Blackstone's face went pale. Dead? How is it dead? That contract represents 30% of our projected annual revenue. The viral video, Gerald explained through gritted teeth. Robinson is pulling the deal because of what happened with Hayes. He won't negotiate. He won't discuss alternatives. It's over. The financial implications hit the room like a physical force. CFO Patricia Lloyd frantically pulled up spreadsheets on her laptop. Without the Novagrid contract, we'll miss our earnings projections by 40%. Our debt-to-equity ratio becomes problematic. We may have to consider layoffs. The stock market reacted with brutal efficiency. When news of the contract cancellation leaked at 11:30 a.m., Lux Automotive's parent company Premier Holdings saw immediate carnage. The stock price plummeted from $127 per share to $94 in less than 2 hours, a 26% nosedive that wiped out $2.3 billion in market value. Trading volumes spiked to 10 times normal levels as institutional investors dumped their holdings. Hedge funds that had been bullish on Premier Holdings the previous week issued emergency sell recommendations. This is a complete disaster, board member Thomas Chen declared during the continued emergency session. How do we explain to shareholders that we lost the biggest deal in company history because our sales manager insulted a customer? Gerald stared at the real-time stock ticker on his monitor, watching decades of company value evaporate. We need crisis management. Full damage control mode. Get our PR firm on the phone immediately. But the bleeding wouldn't stop. Major investment firms began issuing downgrades. Goldman Sachs dropped Premier Holdings from buy to sell. Morgan Stanley removed the company from their recommended portfolio entirely. By market close, the stock had settled at $89 per share, a devastating 30% loss that represented the worst single-day performance in the company's 40-year history. The board's emergency session extended past midnight as members grappled with the magnitude of their crisis. Legal counsel warned of potential shareholder lawsuits. The head of investor relations predicted quarterly earnings calls would be absolutely brutal. Meanwhile, competing dealerships across the country began reaching out to Novagrid Innovations, hoping to capture the massive fleet contract that Lux had thrown away. Mercedes-Benz of Manhattan issued a statement welcoming all customers with dignity and professionalism. BMW Corporate sent a personal letter to Malik expressing their commitment to inclusive service. The message was clear. In the modern business world, discrimination wasn't just morally wrong, it was financially suicidal. One moment of racist laughter had cost more than most companies earn in a lifetime. Within 72 hours of the contract cancellation, Lux Automotive Group became a case study in corporate self-destruction. The dealership that had once boasted about serving discerning clientele now found itself abandoned by the very customers they'd claimed to value. High-profile clients began canceling orders en masse. Tech entrepreneur Sarah Chen withdrew her order for 3 custom Porsches, stating publicly, "I refuse to support businesses that discriminate against successful people of color." Celebrity chef Marcus Williams canceled his entire fleet renewal, posting on Instagram, "My money goes to businesses that respect all customers." The damage extended far beyond individual cancellations. Corporate accounts that represented millions in annual revenues started disappearing. Goldman Sachs moved their executive vehicle contracts to a competitor. Microsoft's East Coast operations canceled their maintenance agreements. Within a week, had lost over $200 million in existing business. But the most devastating blow came from an unexpected source, their own employees. David Martinez, the technician who'd leaked the original footage, filed a complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission alleging a pattern of discriminatory behavior. His complaint detailed incidents involving Hispanic customers, Asian clients, and multiple instances of Black customers receiving substandard treatment. 3 more employees came forward with similar allegations, creating a legal nightmare for Lux's parent company. Employment attorneys began circling, sensing a class action lawsuit that could cost tens of millions in settlements. The automotive industry watched in horror as one of their premier dealerships imploded. Executives across the country held emergency meetings to examine their own practices. Ferrari of Beverly Hills immediately implemented mandatory bias training for all staff. Lamborghini New York hired a diversity consultant to review their customer service protocols. The National Automobile Dealers Association issued an unprecedented statement acknowledging systemic issues within luxury retail automotive spaces and announcing a $50 million industry-wide initiative to combat discrimination. The program included mandatory training, customer service audits, and a hotline for reporting bias incidents. Legal investigations multiplied like wildfire. The New York Attorney General's office launched a formal inquiry into Lux's business practices. The Department of Justice Civil Rights Division opened a federal investigation. Local prosecutors began examining whether the dealership's actions violated consumer protection laws. Financial regulators joined the assault. The Securities and Exchange Commission announced they would investigate whether Premier Holdings had adequately disclosed discrimination risks to investors. Credit rating agencies placed the company under review for potential downgrades. Lux Automotive's insurance carriers delivered another crushing blow. Their liability coverage was canceled after insurers deemed the company an unacceptable risk for discrimination lawsuits. Finding new coverage would cost 3 times their previous premiums, if they could find coverage at all. The ripple effects reached surprising corners of the business world. Harvard Business School announced plans to develop a case study around the incident for their ethics curriculum. Corporate training companies reported a 400% increase in requests for anti-bias workshops from automotive dealerships. Social media continued fueling the fire. The hashtag #HagLuxConsequences began trending as people shared stories of other businesses facing similar backlash for discriminatory practices. Business schools started teaching the incident as an example of how quickly corporate reputations could collapse in the digital age. 3 weeks after Malik's humiliation, Gerald Whitman resigned as CEO amid mounting pressure from investors. His replacement, brought in from outside the automotive industry, immediately announced a complete cultural overhaul of the company. But the damage was irreversible. Luxury automotive competitors had already captured most of Lux's customer base. The dealership's Manhattan flagship location, once a symbol of success, now stood as a monument to the price of prejudice. Industry analysts estimated the total cost of the incident at over $3 billion when factoring in lost business, legal fees, stock devaluation, and reputation damage. Have you seen a company face consequences for discrimination? Because this was just the beginning of a transformation that would reshape an entire industry. 6 months after walking away from $1.8 billion, Malik Robinson had become something he never intended to be. A symbol of principled leadership in corporate America. The fleet contract that Lux Automotive had lost found a new home with Meridian Motors, a dealership chain that had immediately overhauled their customer service practices after witnessing Lux's destruction. Meridian's CEO personally flew to Novagrid's headquarters to ensure every detail met Malik's standards. The signing ceremony became a celebration of inclusive business practices, with civil rights leaders and business executives applauding the partnership. Novagrid Innovations thrived beyond all projections. The company's stance against discrimination attracted top-tier talent from across the tech industry. Brilliant minds who valued integrity over income chose Novagrid specifically because of Malik's principled decision. The company's valuation jumped to $18 billion, as investors recognized that ethical leadership translated into sustainable profits. Major corporations began seeking Malik's counsel on diversity initiatives. Apple invited him to join their supplier diversity board. Microsoft appointed him as an advisor on inclusive business practices. Harvard Business School offered him a position as a visiting professor, teaching a course on ethical leadership in the digital age. The automotive industry experienced a complete cultural revolution. Luxury dealerships across the nation implemented what became known as Robinson Protocols, comprehensive training programs focused on eliminating bias in customer interactions. Mystery shopping programs specifically tested how dealerships treated customers of different backgrounds. The changes extended far beyond automotive retail. Luxury hotels, high-end restaurants, exclusive boutiques, and private clubs all examined their practices with new scrutiny. The hospitality industry created the Dignity Standards Initiative, a certification program ensuring equal treatment regardless of customer background. Law schools began teaching the Lux Automotive case as a masterclass in how discrimination creates massive legal and financial liability. Business schools incorporated the incident into their ethics curricula, demonstrating how moral choices drive long-term success. The broader movement Malik had inadvertently sparked reached international levels. Similar incidents in London, Dubai, and Tokyo resulted in swift corporate consequences, as companies worldwide recognized that discriminatory behavior had become financially unsustainable. 5 years later, Malik received the Presidential Medal of Freedom for his contributions to civil rights and ethical business leadership. The ceremony highlighted how his refusal to compromise principles had created systemic change across multiple industries. Lux Automotive Group never recovered. The company filed for bankruptcy 18 months after the incident, its assets sold to competitors who explicitly marketed their commitment to inclusive service. The Manhattan showroom became a community center, its transformation serving as a physical reminder of the consequences of prejudice. Roderick Hayes, the sales manager whose laughter started everything, became unemployable in luxury retail. His name was forever associated with corporate discrimination, serving as a cautionary tale for anyone considering similar behavior. David Martinez, the technician who leaked the footage, received a full scholarship to Columbia Business School funded by Nova Grid Innovations. His courage in exposing discrimination earned him recognition as a whistleblower hero, eventually leading to a successful career in corporate ethics consulting. The incident reshaped how America viewed the relationship between business success and moral character. Malik's decision proved that choosing integrity over immediate profit could generate exponentially greater long-term value. Fortune 500 companies now routinely reference the Malik standard when making difficult ethical decisions. The question, "What would Malik Robinson do?" became shorthand for choosing principles over profit, regardless of financial pressure. The true measure of the transformation wasn't found in policy changes or training programs. It was found in the countless individuals who never experienced discrimination because one man refused to accept disrespect as the price of doing business. One moment of racist laughter had cost more than money. It had cost an entire industry's credibility. But from that destruction came something more valuable, proof that standing up for what's right doesn't just change individual lives, it changes the world. Malik Robinson's legacy wasn't the billions he walked away from, it was the billions of interactions that became more respectful because he refused to accept anything less. Subscribe for more stories where standing up for what's right changes everything, because these moments of courage create the world we all deserve to live in.